your grades, that kind of thing?
I guess I can go first. So I'm David Schneier. I don't know if you met my mom. My mom's Michelle Schneier. She's the secretary of the REC.
She was sitting in the table?
Yes.
Yeah, and signing people in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I basically, 2016 is what got me into politics. I volunteered for Trump. I really liked the, just to make America great again. It really appealed to me a lot. It's like restoring American greatness and stuff like that. So ever since then, I've just really been on board with what Trump was trying to do. Really excited about him in 2020. That didn't go, as expected. So after that, I kind of realized that, there's no teen conservative group in Escambia County.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing for people our age who want to get involved to do. So I met a guy who does some stuff like this out in Colorado, who is a little younger than me. Actually, I think he's 16, I'm 17. And so he just gave me some pointers. I got a membership packet from the National Tars, and we just last Friday we actually got voted on by the Florida Tars to be an official chapter of the Florida Tars. That was fun to be there for that meeting.
Awesome.
And I mean, really, I'm an America First conservative. I just want to see that agenda get done, and that's why I want to focus on doing this. So.
Awesome.
I'm Presley. I'm a junior at Pensacola High School, and I moved from Connecticut this year, and last year in July. But I was always into politics, and then when 2020 came around, I worked on a congressional campaign in my local district, and some other local campaigns, and that really I guess showed me how passionate I am about politics,
mm-hmm.
and that I wanted to get involved more. So when I came down here, I wanted to work on the DeSantis campaign, and then David gave me the information about it. So.
Okay. And why did your family move from Connecticut? Was it because of COVID?
It was COVID restrictions they were done with, and they were done with a lot of the policies up north, and they wanted to be with Ron DeSantis and be in a free state.
Awesome. Daniel, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so basically David's going to be interning for me. The group here helped out with the campaign earlier today, and then told them they could have their meeting here, and so I'm ready to speak, and yeah.
Awesome.
Josh. I'm here because he invited me here, and also I'm a part of the TARS, so I thought I'd just attend the first in-person meeting, see how it goes and stuff.
Okay, and then Isaac, are you able to speak through this? No mic. Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm Jordan Carr. I just got out of the Air Force a month ago, so May 1st, over the COVID mandates. A little bit about me moving to Florida. I was actually stationed in Colorado during 2020, so during all of the COVID mandates happening. Colorado was a very different state than Florida. I'm from Florida, and I was very excited to come back to Florida. This was pre-COVID shot mandate, but it was very much during the mask up mandates that were happening. And coming to Florida, I was so ecstatic because it was like a completely different country compared to Colorado. I could not believe what was happening in the military. I couldn't believe what was happening in the state. Being in the military as an officer, our oath is to the Constitution of the United States. I could not believe what was happening to the civilian population. In the military, we are expected to do certain things that are lawful orders and carry those orders out, but we are always beholden to the Constitution. That trumps everything. So I couldn't believe what was happening. Came to Florida, and it was just escalating from there. So I actually do have kind of an outline. I'm going to kind of go through that first. I don't want to bore you guys, so a little bit about who I am. So I graduated from the University of Florida in 2013. I'm from Brevard County, so Patrick Air Force Base, the Space Coast, if you guys are familiar with that area, where all the launches out of Kennedy Space Center. It's about 45 minutes from Orlando. I'm from that area, and I went to a military high school, and my whole family serves. So my mom is a retired Air Force senior NCO, my dad served in the Air Force, my sister's a Space Force officer, my husband's serving still, and so the military was something that was ingrained in our family, very patriotic, love of country, all of those values were instilled in us. And went to the University of Florida, graduated, commissioned, joined the Air Force. I got an intelligence slot, so I PCS to Texas, where we went through intelligence training. I was in the military for almost 9 years, so got out a month ago. June would have been my 9-year mark. My mother growing up, so I don't know if this seems, you guys seem pretty self-motivated to be involved in political groups, and maybe Josh, maybe you were dragged into this, I'm not sure. But I will tell you, growing up, this is awesome that you guys are so involved, because growing up, my mom would lecture my sister and I. We'd take drives down A1A, and she would lecture us in the car about how important policy was and politics and paying attention. And you know, when you're a teenager, you know, I didn't want to listen to any of that stuff. You know, we had enough issues to deal with at school. We didn't want to be dragged into the real world. I am so thankful that she did that, because I did not pay far enough attention back then. But I do believe that that's why I'm so passionate about politics now. I think that her, you know, ingraining that in us subconsciously affected where I am right now. Okay, so I want you guys to think about something quietly real quick. This is something that I used to ask my airmen. I used to be a flight commander. Actually, for 4 years I was a flight commander, so in charge of hundreds of airmen, 18 to 23-year-olds. And something that I always ask them, because people pay attention to the negatives, is what is one quality about yourself that you like and why? So think about that real quick. And you don't have to share it. I just want you to think about it. Okay. One quality about myself that I like is that I'm very empathetic and that I'm a fighter. So what I mean by that, you know, empathy is something that I think a lot of people associate with Democrats, right? They think of emotion, they think of, you know, being triggered. But empathy means the ability to understand different walks of life, different demographics, and not necessarily sympathize with them or feel bad for them or treat them any differently, but you can, it really makes you more personable. And that was something that I was really good at as an officer, was that, you know, people in the military, they come from all walks of life. And I was never the #1 technical expert in my field, but I was always the best leader because of my ability to connect with people. And I think that's what makes me really qualified to run, because I care about what's happening to people, I care about what's happening to the community. And so that is something that I'm good at, and we can all use the one thing that you're good at. You know, you don't have to be the smartest, you don't have to be the best technical expert, but if you can take what you're good at, you have a purpose in the community, and you can do that. And clearly you're doing that. You're good at getting other people to join a cause that you're passionate about. All right, so what got me interested in politics and what is happening? So very similar to you, it was actually 2015 timeframe that I got interested in politics, and it was Benghazi. I was not commissioned in 2012 when Benghazi happened, but I started paying attention during the 2016 elections and leading up to the 2016 election, because I was an intelligence officer, because of what was happening with Hillary Clinton and the servers, and the fact that she had these servers in her home. And at this time I was commissioned, and I had friends that were a part of the Benghazi operations, and so, you know, things were not exposed, the American people were lied to. And I remember actually during 2012, I was stationed, or I was at the University of Florida, and I remember, if you guys remember this, we were told that there was a crazy pastor in Gainesville, Florida, that sparked these extremists in Libya to go out and attack the U.S. Installations in Benghazi. So I remember hearing that. I remember that being on the news, on YouTube, and our entire administration was talking about how there was a crazy pastor in Gainesville, Florida, that sparked this attack. So it kind of came full circle when I was listening to these hearings about Benghazi, and Hillary Clinton was on the stand, and, you know, lying, and she said, what difference does it make? And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that this was a person that was wanting to become the president of the United States, saying, what difference does it make when we lose 4 Americans? But that taught me to question. Growing up, my mom and dad, you know, we grew up in a conservative household, and we were always told, you know, you're conservative, which I am a conservative, but I am glad that I've learned things in the last couple of years that has made me question, you know, you don't just blindly follow a candidate just because they have an R next to their name. And I think a lot of us have realized this in the last 2 years, because there are a lot of Republicans who say they're going to do something, who talk the talk and don't actually provide any action to that, or who say Trump won in 2020 and they're not calling for audits. And so that's very telling. So that was something that I learned was through listening to the Benghazi hearings. I remember Trey Gowdy made a comment. He said, you need to figure out what you believe and you need to figure out why you believe it. And that's always stuck with me. And I think that that's an important process throughout our lives, is to always question, figure out what you believe and why do you believe those things. And it's important to question, it's important to change for the better and to self-reflect. Okay, and why this is important, it actually comes full circle today, because we don't want to be slaves to the system. We don't want to just comply. So I left the military. I was forced out a month ago because I am not taking an experimental shot, right? We were mandated to get a shot, and I was making a lot of money in the military, and if you believe it or not, in 10 years I could have retired if I wanted, which is something, it's nice, right? I'm pretty young, and to think I could have a retirement and not really have to work in 10 years, that's awesome, right? I did not want to be a slave to the system. I knew that it was wrong, and my oath is to the Constitution. These shot mandates are unlawful. There's not a single FDA-approved vaccine in circulation, okay? CDC, FDA came out with guidance that said, yes, they're approved, we have the shot. Well, if you actually look at the policy and you look at all the documentation, it hasn't been produced. So I saw what was going on, not just to myself, but to the cadets at the academies, and then across the force, especially our junior enlisted members. They're the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds that really don't have a voice. They're just told to do something by their chain of command, and they go out and do it. And I was pissed. So I started an anonymous group on social media for military members, which is pretty risky because we are not allowed to step out of line. We're not allowed to go against the Department of Defense, right? We can get in a lot of trouble for that. So I started this anonymous group on Telegram. It was called Fight for Veterans. And it became a place where military members across the Department of Defense could come and share religious exemption templates, could vent about what their chain of command was telling them. A lot of them were being threatened with jail time. And this really became a place where people could connect and feel not alone, because like the media lies all the time, the Department of Defense was lying and telling people that they're the only holdout in their unit, and that's not true. There are 500,000 holdouts still not getting the shot and at risk of losing their jobs. So I started that group, and through some various connections, I was able to get involved with an organization through Defending the Republic. And if you guys are not familiar with that group, Sidney Powell started this organization, Defending the Republic, and now represents clients like the January 6th prisoners. And they had not taken on a military case or any COVID shot mandate related case. And I reached out to them through some connections, and they agreed to take us on. So I was one of the first lawsuits to file a lawsuit against the Department of Defense, and that's a pretty scary thing. That's basically going against the president, because it is. He's the commander-in-chief, and he's the head of our chain of command. And so for a military member who is risking losing everything, that was a scary thing. But the blessing is there are so many more people that are fighting that. So over 25 lawsuits have been filed against the Department of Defense, which is historical. Okay, military members, we do not normally go against the chain of command. We do not publicly come out and say this is not right and we're suing our own organization. The fact that we had to go through civil litigation, so outside of military channels, is very telling. If you're not familiar with the military, usually you handle things within the military system. And we were not getting any traction, anything done, any positive movement within the military system, and so we had to go outside of the military system. And because we are protected, we're still U.S. citizens at the end of the day, and we do have rights, contrary to what people try to tell us. Just because we signed up to serve does not mean that we gave up our rights. Okay, so through that, I was also able to make other connections. I've been very involved in the local community through Gulf Coast Patriots, Convention of States, and the Escambia Federation of Republican Women. So while I was active duty, I actually became a district captain for Convention of States. Are you guys familiar with Convention of States? Okay, Convention of States it's an amazing organization. Article 5 of the Constitution, there's actually 2 avenues to make and amend amendments to the Constitution. One of those ways is through Congress, right? That's the way that we've always done it, is through Congress. It's our federal representatives that make and amend amendments to the Constitution. Well, there's another way, and that's through a Convention of States, where 2/3 of the country at the state legislature level agree to hold a Convention of States, and that's we the people get to decide what amendments we want to the Constitution. It's never been done, and that organization I got involved with after the 2020 election, because I knew that the 2020 election was unconstitutional. I knew that, well, we saw it unfold, weeks and months after weeks and months of still not being told who the president was, which we all know who it was and is. I felt like I had to do something, so I joined Convention of States, and I became a district captain, started hosting meetings and educating people on Article 5 of the Constitution. And so that is why I realized through the Convention of States why state legislatures are so important, and I honestly think, and I truly believe this, nothing is going to get accomplished at the federal level. Things get accomplished at the state level, and I think you guys are all products of experiencing that through Governor DeSantis, right? There's legislation that he has passed, policy that he's implemented, and it's completely disrupted the entire country. I mean, representatives are pissed because he's so effective, and he's bringing the power back to the states, and he's educating people and helping them see that states have the power. People have the power. And that's why I'm very passionate about state representation and at the state level running for office, because I really think that's where change is going to come. So through some of these organizations like Gulf Coast Patriots, I also became aware of Matt Gaetz was holding a rally in the local area, and I organized for over 30 military members and their families to attend this rally. This was when I was still active duty, because our representatives were not listening to us. We had emailed them, they were not responding, right? Our representatives work for us. They weren't even responding to us. So I said, you know what? We need to do something about this. So we held up signs at the J rally that he was holding, and our sign said, help the unvaxxed military, we fight for your rights, help protect ours. And it was so effective that he spoke with us afterward for 15 minutes, and we exchanged contact. Through that contact exchange, he invited us on his podcast, and so I was on his podcast a month and a half ago, and it was awesome because his podcast reaches millions of viewers, and I think that it reached the community so that people could see what was actually happening in the military. And this stuff is still happening here in our communities at NAS Pensacola, at Eglin, at Hurlburt, at Duke Field, all of this stuff. So what that taught me was our representatives work for us. Well, I already knew this, but they work for us, and sometimes we have to show them, right? I mean, they're busy people. They don't have time to always respond. Their team doesn't have time to always respond, especially in an election year when they're campaigning. But if you show up, people need to show up. They need to know, or they need to show that their representatives that they're involved in understanding what's going on in the community, that they're involved in the policy happening and being implemented. So I think that it's also important to admit when you're wrong and to change your mind. There are a lot of things, I used to be, I think I told you guys, I grew up conservative. Our family was conservative. That's just what you were. But I have learned that not all conservatives are the same. There are a lot of Republicans who claim to be Republicans and that vote anti-American, legislation in, or that are implementing unlawful policy, that are unconstitutional, and that aren't standing up for the Constitution. And they take the same oath that I took in the military, and our oath doesn't expire. So I think that's important. So just remember that, it's okay to change your mind, and that's an important part of growing. And then surround yourself with people who make you better and bring your intellectual engagement up. I think this is awesome because I was never involved in anything like this when I was, still in high school. In fact, I didn't get involved in anything like this until I was in my 20s. When I was stationed in Colorado, I joined a GOP. I was active duty, but I didn't associate it with my service, and I helped the GOP in Colorado because I believe that no matter where you're at, you can help bring America First values into your community. And I lived there, even though I didn't vote there, I lived there, and it was important to me. Okay, so you're all here because you care. I hope that you're here because you care, and you care about the community, and you care about the people that you're electing. There are a lot of issues to care about. I will say this is just advice that I have because I've seen it. When I was the district captain for Convention of States, I would get people that were frustrated because there's just so many issues happening in our country, and there's so many problems, and from CRT in schools to our election systems to these mandates. So my advice to you would be to pick one issue that you really care about and to focus on the issue, because you're going to be that person one day that is going to have the answer for that one issue, and it's going to be so impactful with legislation. It's going to be so impactful with who needs to know information about that issue. So find one issue that you care about. For me, it's a combination of things. It's veterans' rights and it's medical freedom. I was forced out of the military because of not having medical freedom, even though it's a given with our Constitution. And so that's something that I care about deeply. The other thing is auditing 2020. Okay, everything happening right now is unlawful. I would not be forced out of the military if we had a legitimate government in place. We wouldn't have baby formula shortages or, threats of repealing our Second Amendment. None of this would have been occurring if we had safe and secure elections. And so that is the primary, or that is the priority for me, is auditing 2020 and fixing our elections. Military members, they have fought for the right to vote and to understand that our vote matters and our vote counts. We fight for other countries to have safe and secure elections, and we can't even get it right in our own country. And so that's wrong. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is to read the Constitution. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Hillsdale College, they have amazing videos. Larry Arnn, he actually was part of Trump's team right before he left office in 2021, and drafted the 1776 project. And Larry Arnn was the person that helped create that PDF. And so I would recommend you go on Hillsdale College. The courses are free. They're super engaging and super interesting and so informative. And it's important, especially because you're probably not learning this stuff in your classrooms. I did a student teaching gig for 2 months, from February to April. And I will say school is way different now than it was when I was going through. When I was going through school, we didn't have phones. We didn't have, the technology that we have today. And I would love to hear more about your experiences in school, maybe some of the distractions that occur. I know my perspective. I was student teaching for a 7th grade class, and it's a little bit different, right? That was a period of a lot of growth for all of us. And it's a crazy time, but I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about your experiences in school, and then the things that you care about in the community. Maybe what your parents care about, because I'm sure they share it in your homes with you. So, do you guys have any questions for me?